This is from the New York Times. So let me give you the context before I read the headline. Mark Zuckerberg puts out this 5-minute long video saying, we're getting rid of fact checkers. We're getting rid of the censorship. You can talk politics again. The fact checkers were biased. So the New York Times writes, Meta says fact checkers were the problem. Fact checkers rule that false. Fact-checking groups that worked with Meta said they had no role in deciding what the company did with the content that was fact-checked. You see, this is the dirty game they play. No one takes responsibility, but I love the headline of fact check false. It's Facebook's fault, not ours. They were the henchmen, and Facebook was, and this is the dirty game. Facebook says, oh, won't someone rid me of this priest? The fact checkers say, you got it, boss. And then Facebook says, we didn't ban you. Mm-hmm. We didn't accuse you of anything. There was an interesting thing, however. When what came up in the whole fiasco over Facebook fact checking, I actually entertained a possible lawsuit against Facebook and a couple of these companies. Because in Meta, I should say Meta, not Facebook. If a fact checker on Instagram determines that your post is false, it is not the fact checker that puts a label on it. It is Meta. Meta puts a label saying contains false content. That's a statement of fact that your content is false. And so I think it was early on. I don't know if they kept this up, but it would say like it had like an I with a slash through it and says this post contains misleading context or false content or some false information or something like this. That's Meta making a statement defaming you, a media producer. And so we never got to that point where we were thinking of suing, but this was not them passing the buck off to third parties. Facebook was using them as an excuse to then make statements where they could say, you can't sue me because they said it was fake news.
Just as long as at the end of the day, if everyone realizes with Chris Cuomo, a Chank, Mark Zuckerberg, that they're not our friends at the end of the day. Just we get past that point, they're not our friends. Let them do what they want to do. Come to our side, try to suck our toes because we're winning. But they're not going to be our friends.
Don't let Chris Cuomo suck your toes, please.
Gosh. Fair. I agree with you. But again, like Tim was saying, what do you guys think winning looks like? You know what I mean?
Sucking our toes.
No. That's. Anyways, winning looks like people want to be around you and people come over to your side and start agreeing with you. If you say, you can't hang out with me like the Libertarians do, you end up losing all the time. So, like, take the victory when you have the victory.
Libertarians, I love you on the anti-war stuff, but I can't stand you on the cultural stuff. I can't stand the Libertarians. Sorry.
I can't stand them at anything.
Like Dave Smith can sit here and be like, war is bad. And I'm like, you sing, Dave. But when the other Libertarians are like, who cares about our borders because the economic numbers are great? I'm like, oh, heaven help me. I want to throw Dave into this because the Mises Caucus is great on this actually. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of these low libertarians who are like, why do we care that 15 million illegal immigrants stormed through our border?
Yeah.
The economy is good. And I'm like,
it's an epidemic. And you know, the one thing that, my favorite Roger Stone rule that I now equate to libertarians is losers don't legislate. And that is my new rule for a lot of these folks. It's like, have a plan, man, you know? But no, I don't even look at those libertarians as actual libertarians. The Ron Paul, Dave Smith, Tom Woods type libertarians, absolutely. And those people realize the border is a real problem and it is impacting, I mean, the fentanyl crisis is a crisis. You cannot just say, oh, let's just open the border.
But it's not so much just that. It is. But my issue is the libertarians, like, why is the border a crisis to me? Well, obviously, you've got trafficking, child trafficking, abuse, drugs. Those are the direct bad. Why is all mass migration bad? And I will say this. I'm a fan of immigration. I like the O1 visa. The O1 is the extraordinary talent. So if you've got a pro athlete, a PhD rocket scientist or whatever, they can come to this country. We'll take them. That's the brain drain, baby. We love that. But when you bring in millions upon millions, legally or otherwise, the American culture is something. Sam Hyde hit the nail on the head with the hammer. You saw that video. It's unquantifiable. It's waking up in the morning with the smell of cinnamon pancakes and coffee that mom's made. It's an orange juice. It's Christmas morning. It's Halloween trick-or-treating. Yep. These are things that don't exist in other countries that are not economic. They have nothing to do with whether or not the border has drugs or anything like that. Those are bad things. It has to do with whether or not we love our lives and want to share them with our children.
the whole the whole back in the day, you used to have to learn English and blah blah blah. There's legitimacy to those arguments, and I do think that you should have to learn English if you come to the United States. I do think that it would be cool if Congress made said that passed a law that said there was an official language and that it was English. And you have to learn English to be an American. And I think that I was under the impression that the H1 visa, H1B visa
H1B.
was the same thing. Was actually what the O1 is.
Nope, that's the lie. That's the trick they use.
So
Got me.
yeah, I didn't know that there was a distinction. I didn't realize that the H1B visa was just was being abused as much as it is. And so I have no problem with the O1 visa either. The H1B, we can get rid of it. I think it's fine if we shut down a lot of immigration. We could cut immigration down to a trickle and I'd be perfectly fine with it. I do think that it's good. It would be good if the people that are here that are not Americanized did assimilate. I do think that that should be something that we demand of the people that come to the United States. You should come to the United States and become an American. If your ideology doesn't line up with the American ideology, you shouldn't be allowed to come here. It's not racist to say your culture doesn't fit in with ours, and you can either, if you want to live life according to the old ways that your culture has, go back to where you came from. If you're going to come to the United States, you come to become an American. I don't think that I don't understand why there's such a problem with that, or why people have decided that that's a problem. It's perfectly fine for there to be a bunch of different countries around the world, and a lot of the places will allow you to go to the place that you prefer.
Donald Trump wants to have military parades, which was a normal thing for everybody for a long time. It is not fascist. It is, it's
pride.
Yeah, we have a strong military.
Yeah.
We're proud of those who sacrifice for the United States. It's strange that Trump's well, let's honor the men and women in uniform and have a military parade. And they're that's fascism because it's showing off military might and power. It's we love our veterans. That's every country does. They want to destroy us, our values, our traditions. And they have claimed, when we say things like, we don't like happy holidays, I'm not going to cry about it, but I say Merry Christmas because I love Christmas. And I understand it means a lot more to most people than it does to me. To me, it's I grew up Catholic, but it's largely just family American tradition. I do respect the Christian moral values that have shaped this country tremendously. And I think these are things that we should maintain, uphold, and cherish. And the left wants to convince you you're an evil, fascistic monster for saying, I love what my parents gave me. That's insane. The idea that you would teach your children discipline and morals is not fascism. The idea that you want to celebrate those who would sacrifice to protect your way of life is not fascism. And this is the game they play when we try to say things like, hey, man, we're for legal immigration so long as it's not at the expense of the American worker and at the expense of American culture. We love it that people want to move to this country, but they have to assimilate. We respect our veterans. We support our troops. We believe that policing can be and largely is a great institution. We all recognize there are problems. Nobody thinks everything is perfect. There's corruption. We're going to get rid of it. And they want to tell you, they want you scared. There are people who live in cities who are terrified to say, I love Christmas because they'll be called a fascist. And I think people just need to be like, no. These are the things I love. My parents gave these things to me, and I'm going to give them to my kids. And I don't want 15 million non-citizens for any reason coming here and then making us erase those traditions and put up a holiday tree. That's not what it is. I went to the mall and we had Santa Claus and we had a Christmas tree and there was a tradition there. And it's okay that we love those things and want them to be protected. Saying I would prefer that my local mall continue this tradition has nothing to do with authoritarianism or attacking minorities.
Yeah, we need to stop doing what we got here. A great point you had before, Tim, was how the Christians turn the other cheek and are tolerant of others and and allow them what they do because as long as they're doing it away from us. And they've been doing it to us for years. We're done with that. It's time to be over with that shit.
Look, man, we see the far left engage in violent, deceptive tactics to put weird books in the schools, to teach kids about adult graphic content. And they tell you when you say, hey, I think that goes too far. They say you're a white supremacist, fascist, far right, etc. Yeah. Enough. Much like the racist thing has fallen out of meaning anything because everybody's racist now. The same thing should happen to fascist, far right. We should be proud to say, look, man, I grew up on apple pie, baseball, and Christmas trees, and I'm going to keep that tradition up. Okay, and we're going to make sure that in our city centers and when our town comes together, you know, out here in Ranson, West Virginia, they had a large tree lighting ceremony on Christmas, and they called it Christmas, and they called it a tree lighting ceremony. We don't need any of this non-denominational generic holiday season celebration. I'm not for that. And it's not authoritarian to say, if my tax dollars pay for it, I have a say in what it represents. So when I go to town hall meetings or when I'm talking to the locals, I say, hey, I pay for this too, Christmas tree. And then they're going to call you a fascist. Nah, get out of here. I say, look, H-1B, I get, but it's abusive, it's abused, and it displaces the American worker, and it's causing cultural decay. I don't care what you call me. It's a fact. These libertarian, I don't know how I got on the libertarian rant, but you get the point.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being a nationalist if you're proud of your nation, proud of your country. They just take it the wrong way. They think it means something else.
Well, and I think we talked about this earlier. I think 2025 is the year where we're just kind of done with the guilt. This guilt of having to admit or like to watch what you're saying because they push so hard that they force you. It's what's the cancer walk on Seinfeld? The ribbon.
Oh, the red ribbon one?
Yeah, the red ribbon. You got to wear your ribbon. You got to wear a ribbon. Where's your ribbon? And it's like, we're just done. I'm done feeling guilty when I do nothing wrong.
Yeah,
I'm done feeling guilty because my parents' traditions I want to pass on to the next generation. I agree with
Christmas.
The idea that you should feel bad about yourself, you should know yourself enough to know whether you're a fascist or whether you're some kind of bigot. And if someone says something to you that doesn't reflect what you actually are, you should not worry about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. No more guilt. I don't care. Look, dude, I want people to live peaceful lives, happy lives, but there is a line. And we talked about this quite a bit. You know, I've had this, I've been thinking a lot about this idea of the slippery slope, what it means to be liberal. I think I've very much fallen into I'm falling into the post-liberal camp. It's not necessarily conservative, but it recognizes the failings of classical liberalism. Carl Benjamin, the Lotus Eaters podcast, they're really great on this stuff. And I think one of the things that was a big moment of recognition for me was the slippery slope isn't one direction. They always try to make the claim that the slippery slope is in one direction. It's not. No matter, it's a slippery ice rink where no matter which direction you go, you're sliding in that direction. And so the point we brought up the other day was when we as rather liberal individuals, and I don't mean you guys, because I know I grew up in this liberal area, and we said gay marriage is fine. These people want to be in their own homes with who they love, and they should have the tax benefits. If someone goes to the hospital, they should be able to go and visit them. I'm like, yeah, all that makes sense. And now they've used that to argue children should get adult material in schools. And I'm like, no. I'm totally opposed to that. They call me far right. They call me conservative because I'm now saying stop teaching kids about this kind of adult fetishism. That's not reproduction. So we fight back, right? We get in the political arena and we say, this is enough. We don't want it. But then you go in the other direction. And now Obergefell, we talked about this yesterday, was a 5-4 decision. If this ends up going to the Supreme Court again, it likely would get overturned. And then you're going to have only, I think, 36 or 38 states that actually have gay marriage. And so there is no happy medium. If you say, okay, fine, we're totally cool with gay marriage, you end up with the argument liberals have made is that in schools, teachers are gay married and the kids want to know about, they'll see a picture of the person's husband. I'm not kidding. This is literally the argument they made. They were on X, a ton of videos, and they were like, what happens if a student sees a male teacher's husband and asks about it? Are they allowed to explain it? And I'm like, perhaps they could say that's something for home to ask your parents and not bring into schools. They argue, however, it's discrimination under the 1964 Civil Rights Act to include male-female sex ed and not female-female, male-male, and all other genders. So, see, the issue is, it's not that they've incremented us in that direction. It's that the moment gay marriage happened, that argument existed. And they used it and said, we will sue you for violation of civil rights because you can't have heterosexual without homosexual sex ed. And I had a liberal actually argue to me when I said, you actually think these books with fetish, weird stuff in it should be allowed for kids? And the response I got from this dude, who's a friend of mine, was, sex ed has been in schools forever. What's the problem? And I said, this is not sex ed. This is fetishism. And he goes, no, it's just that people experience sex differently. And I'm like, and there it is. The moment the ruling comes down, the argument exists. Now, People are pushing back and they're saying, we don't want this. You get a Donald Trump. Donald Trump puts three more conservative justices on the Supreme Court. If Obergefell goes to the Supreme Court, it's likely to go 6-3, overturning it under the argument, hey, it's not a question for the Supreme Court. Maybe. I don't know if that happens. But my point is, there's no happy medium. There's no middle ground. It's a slippery slope in all directions.
And I think sometimes it has to get bad enough for people to wake up on all sides, right? Look, how does a Ron Paul libertarian become a diehard MAGA guy who thinks that Trump has to win the White House? Well, when they started saying they were going to cut off the private parts of our kids, maybe that woke me up a little bit, right? I think sometimes it gets to this point where you're like, what are you saying? There's no way you're arguing that. You're talking about these people are actually arguing this with a straight face. But I think you're right. I mean, it can happen from different angles, but a lot of this we were like, how did we get here?
Sometimes being principled means allowing monstrous behavior, and I'm not okay with that. Like being principled is like, well, it's not my kid. Well, if if the parents want it to, then okay. F that, man.
Yeah.
It is not okay to mutilate children's bodies.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.